Hello and welcome to Gapeys Grow Room. Today we're going to be talking about my experiment that I'm doing this year in the grow room, comparing the VG80 lights from Mars Hydro with the shop lights that I've been using in my grow room for the past probably 10 years. They're T8 fluorescent shop lights and they've been serving me well for many years, but they do have their flaws. So I wanted to do a little experiment to see if the Mars Hydro VG80s would be a good replacement for the fluorescents that I've been using. So I've got a few different plants that I was trialing between the two lights, and let's take a look and see which ones did better. If you haven't seen my grow room set up before, this is what it looks like. Over here on the left racks, I've got my tried and true shop lights with T8 fluorescent bulbs. I've got two bulb fixtures, two on each shelf. They're not all the same fixture. I did get them from various places. They're getting harder and harder to find because LED is really taking over the fluorescents. But I got them from various, like Amazon. I got some from Lowe's, just different places. The only problem that I've had with these is that the bulbs are so close together that I can't, they just don't cover the full 10-20 tray. So you can see this tray, it doesn't go, it's not completely full of plants because I need to keep a little bit of space on one end because the light just does not cover it. So these fluorescent lights have to be about 1 to 2 inches away from the plants. So that means it's not going to cover the entire tray. So I lose a lot of space on the grow shelves for these. So I've got 4 of these 10-20 trays on each shelf, and I just don't have the full coverage of that shelf with using these. So that is one of my primary reasons for looking at LED, because I really want something that's going to cover the entire shelf without any lost space. Now over here on the right side of my grow shelf, I've got a similar setup. There's less shelves on this side because I've got some LED panels on the top shelf, so they need to be a lot further away from the plants than the shop lights. And down here on the bottom are the new lights that I'm trying from Mars Hydro. They're the VG80 lights, so these are the most similar to the shop lights I've been using. But again, these have to be pretty far away from the plants. Right now I've probably got these about 8 inches away from the plants. And the only thing I wish these had was a dimmer adjustment. So the panels that I've got on the top shelf, you can dim and put them closer to the lights if you wanted to. But these you can't dim, but you can adjust the height with these cables here. So I kind of have been experimenting with the distance, and it seems like about 6 to 8 inches is ideal. And I'm going to be reviewing a few things that I've got growing under both lights to see which ones are doing better. We're going to start by comparing the Celosia. So this is a flower. On the left here are the ones that were growing under the fluorescent T8 bulbs, and then the ones on the right were under the LEDs. You can see a pretty big difference between the ones on the left and the ones on the right. We've got 3 different varieties here: the Spun Sugar, Dusty Rose, and Pink Chanel. So in pretty much every case, the ones on the left are bigger. The ones on the right, they don't look sickly or anything, but they are considerably smaller. And I think that is probably due to the fluorescent lights being warmer. So that's causing the plants to grow a little bit more quickly. And we're seeing pretty much the same exact thing on the Amaranth. I've got 2 different varieties, the Coral Fountain and the Mira. And here on the left, you can see they are much bigger than those on the right. And I think they're even bigger than the Celosia we were just looking at. So again, seeing similar results. The ones on the right look fine, just a little bit smaller than those on the left. Next, let's take a look at our marigolds. I've got 2 different varieties here, the Joker Marigold in front. We've got our fluorescents here and the LEDs here. I'm actually not really seeing much of a difference. The fluorescent ones, I think the leaves look a little bit more reddish colored. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. But as far as the height goes and the health of the plants, they look pretty similar. The ones in the back are the Cracker Jack variety. And in this case, the ones under the fluorescent lights are a little bit taller than those under the LEDs, but the ones under the LEDs, they still look like they're in pretty good shape. So not too big of a difference here in the growth of the marigolds. Our Statice flowers, this is where we have the biggest difference, and these seemingly do not like the LEDs at all. So we've got our Statices here on the left, and I did kind of mess up. I've got the Formula Mix variety here on the left and the Pacific Mix on the right. I should have put one of each under each type of light, but I'm pretty sure that the leaves are not supposed to look like this. You could see how they're turning red and kind of just do not look healthy at all. And then the ones here under the fluorescents are nice and green and healthy looking. So in the future, I will not be growing the Statice under the LEDs. Next, we've got our lettuces. I've got 3 different varieties, and I threw in a third experiment. This one here was outside. You can see these are a lot smaller because it's really still pretty cold outside. They're still alive. It's gotten down to about 32 degrees outside, and it's been 40s and 50s during the days, most days. So I'm not too surprised that these are growing a lot slower. So they're not really technically part of this experiment, but I just thought I would see how much slower they would grow outside. So these two here are our LED versus our fluorescent, and the one in the back is probably the most visibly different. This is the Morton's mix, and you can see the ones under the LED are, the color of the leaves are just a lot different. So they're very red, and these ones here under the fluorescent is what really they should look like. Nice green, vibrant colors with some variegated purpling. So that's really what we want to see. So these are not doing well under the LEDs at all. The middle one here is the Bower lettuce. Those don't actually look too bad. They're pretty similar. I think the ones under the fluorescent are a little bit larger, but the color of the two seem to be pretty similar. And then the ones in front are the Butter Crunch. And the ones on the left here that were under the fluorescent do look a little bit taller and bigger, a little bit healthier looking than the ones under the LED. These are a little bit more flattened, but they seem to be doing okay. The last thing we're going to compare is our peppers. So I've got 3 peppers that I was growing under the LEDs. We've got the Billy Biker here on the front. You can see the leaves on the Billy Biker. They're kind of purplish, which I don't think they're supposed to be. The one here on the left is the one that was on the fluorescent, looking really nice and healthy, much taller and just more healthy in general. The ones in the middle here is a purple variety called Gypsy Baron. And you can see the one on the left here looking really nice and healthy. That was under the fluorescents. And then the one here on the right was under the VG80 LEDs. You can see some of the leaves are kind of starting to curl up a little bit, which is not healthy. So I think that one is not very happy under the LED. The ones in the back here are the Chloe's Sweet Tangerine. And again, you can see the one on the left that was under the fluorescent is much healthier looking than the one on the right. So unfortunately, it looks like the peppers do not like the VG80 too much. Just to recap on our experiments, we have our VG80 LED grow lights from Mars Hydro versus my fluorescent shop lights, which I've been using for several years. So I've been wanting to try and find an LED alternative to my shop lights. And the main reason is for the coverage area. So the fluorescent shop lights that I've been using, they don't cover the entire 10-20 trays on the grow shelf, so I lose a lot of grow space because of that. Whereas these LEDs, they cover the entire shelf with no loss of space, which is really nice. So the Mars Hydro VG80s do come in packs of 2, and they can be daisy chained together. I found that 3 lights on one shelf covers the entire area pretty well, and you can daisy chain all 3 of those together. I do have one left over that I'm not using because I bought 2 packs of 2. So I may consider buying another 2-pack. That way I can use these on 2 different grow shelves. But we did find that a lot of our plants prefer the fluorescent lights, and I think that's because the fluorescent lights here need to be much closer to the seedlings so they grow a lot faster because they have that extra warmth. whereas the LED lights are pretty far away from the seedlings, so they need a lot more headspace and aren't as close and don't put off as much heat, so they grow a little bit more slowly. But I did see a couple of different plants that just did not seem to like the LED lights at all. And I won't be growing those under those lights in the future. But for the most part, a lot of things didn't seem to mind it. They just grew a little bit more slowly. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.